Welcome to the edTPA Task 2 overview. This overview is going to be reviewing what all program areas need to complete Task 2 of the edTPA. So for Task 2, you're going to have two components, the video component and the commentary component. You might remember in Task 1, the commentary is where the score is going to be looking to get the majority of their score from. For Task 2, the video is actually where the scorer is going to spend most of their time looking for evidence of you having good quality teaching. The commentary is going to be used as a supplement to that video to help identify certain parts that you really want the scorer to pay attention to. So there's 9 different steps to Task 2, and we're going to go over each one of these individually. You can find more information around page 23 of your handbook. The order that I put these steps in is slightly different than your handbook. It's still the same information, but I found that the order in the handbook is a little bit confusing, and so I'm trying to clarify exactly what you are supposed to do for Task 2. So step 1 is obtain video permission for every student in your classroom, or the majority of them. You can find that video form on the edTPA website. And right here is where you're going to download that form. There is the English version and then the Spanish version. If you need additional languages, please speak to your English language learning teacher, and she can help or he can help with you using Google Translate or some other translating service. When you download that permission slip, it's going to have 2 pages to it. You can print this out front and back. However, the front side right here needs to be complete. So you need to complete this part up here prior to sending it home with your students. If you send this home just blank, a lot of parents get very confused on exactly what they're supposed to be completing. The back side, if your students are not over the age of 18, so the vast majority of you will not have 18-year-olds in your class, you can just go ahead and cross that part out. Only if you're in a senior or maybe junior, but probably senior class would this even apply to you. The back side is the only side that you need to submit to SLL and to keep a record of. The front side is just giving information for the parents, and we don't need to have a copy of that on your file. The easiest way for you to submit these is to take the whole stack of permission slips down to your school's copy machine, press scan to send, put them all on the top feeder. It'll scan them all. It'll create, then you put in your email address. It'll create a PDF and email it directly to you. If you need help with that, the receptionist in the front desk or the front office usually is able to help, and also your mentor teacher can probably help you with that. So it's inevitable. Most of you will have at least one student that does not get permission, or they never bring back their permission form. So what do? Well, the first thing to do is to try to mitigate this ahead of time by trying to provide some sort of incentive and getting as many of those permission slips as you can. Second, don't panic. You still need to have all of the students participate. Now, a lot of times, middle school and high schools will say, I only received like 3 or 4 forms back. And just go ahead and film your classroom the way you would normally, and then try to get those permission slips back later. Your mentor teacher can help you by contacting parents or sending a reminder, sending an email, sending a text message, something to help get those permission slips back. Let's say you only have 1 or maybe 2. First thing that you can do is sit the student behind where the camera is. So if you have the camera on a tripod, maybe this student can sit directly like 1 row behind where that tripod is, and the tripod's still going to capture the majority of students, but not that one. The other thing you can do is have the camera kind of over in the corner of one of the rooms, and if the student is sitting right next to that camera, they will not be in the frame. The next thing that you can do is you can show the back of the student's head. Also, the student can talk in the video. Totally fine. If you hear the voice of the student but you don't have their face, you can use that you can still use that even if you don't have permission for them to be in the video. The last step, if all else fails, you can blur that student's face. Now, we'd like to try to either have them out of frame or just the back of their head, if at all possible, because when you blur a face, you're going to have to go frame by frame, and it can take a very long time to do that. But Dr. Harden and myself know how to do this, and we will help you if we get to that situation that you need to have somebody's face blurred. You can still use all students can still participate and should still participate in the lesson. And you can still use a student's written work as a task 3 work sample, even if you don't have their permission to be in the video. So step 2 is examine your plans for the learning segment and identify challenging learning tasks and activities where your students will be engaged. So yes, I recommend that you film everything. But you do want to keep in mind that there's going to be some times that maybe you know this part of the lesson is most likely going to be what you select, and you can kind of figure out what questions you want to ask the students and maybe who's going to be sitting where, depending on if you know that for sure that's going to be a good, strong part of your learning segment. So good teaching should have the students engaged in doing something even when the teacher is talking. This could be that they're working on a worksheet in front of them, that they have like notes that they're taking, that they've got like postcards or post-it notes or something that they are doing along with you. That this is not just you sitting there talking and them listening. You can be explicitly teaching how to make sense of the information. How do we take notes? If it is a lecture, then you can't just assume that the students know what information is good to be taking notes. Even up through high school, you still should be explicitly teaching that. And a lot of grades have note-taking as one of their standards in some capacity. What information is important? How should the children use the information, or how should the students use the information that they are given? Make connections to the world beyond the classroom. Allow for students to make discoveries on their own. If you can capture you being the guide and facilitating the students making those discoveries rather than you just telling them, then that's going to be really great quality video. An example of this is in a math lesson. If you are talking about the circumference of a circle, instead of just giving the students the equation or the formula for finding that, talking about how do we determine what that formula is? Why does it work? Can the students do an experiment with circles and measuring the outside of the circle and determining on their own that formula will work? Make sure that you are looking in your handbook for video requirements. Each program has some little nuances that the individual program and the individual content wants you to capture. So different programs have different amount of videos. The most is going to be 2. Some programs require you to have 2 different clips. Some programs say that you only have to have 1 clip, but you can have that additional clip as well. What are the time limits for those clips? Now remember, you are going to be capturing everything. You are going to video everything, and then later you will select it. But in some programs, you have the opportunity to have a 20-minute running clip, and in some you can only have 10 minutes. And so you might want to determine that your pace needs to be a little quicker in a certain area, or you might determine that you want to put these 2 activities together even though you didn't have them together in your plans, because it would be better for the video. And what should you focus on? So once again, each program has little nuances on what they should focus on. The videos themselves, maybe one video is supposed to have more of a large group feel, one video is supposed to have a smaller group feel, or one video is supposed to be you demonstrating how to do something, whereas the second video is supposed to be more of the students actually doing the work. So make sure that you look at, first I suggest looking in the evidence chart at the back of your handbook. And then after you have that, you read that evidence chart, because that's kind of the big picture on what you should be doing for those videos. Then go through and read the test 2 section in your handbook, because it'll pick up it'll tell you those little nuances. So step 3, review your video evidence that you might need for task 2 and task 3 before you begin teaching. Task 2 is the one task that everybody, no matter what program you are in, requires videos. Most require 2, some only require 1. But then for task 3, you have a lot of areas that you may decide that you're going to use a video. So for instance, for task 3, the work sample could be a video or it could be written. You have to have a work sample, but in some cases a video is going to be a better fit. If you are assessing the students doing something, like you're assessing how well they are able to fluently read, then you absolutely are going to need a work sample a video for your work sample. If you are going to be scoring in music, how well a student is able to produce a sound or keep in rhythm while they're playing, then yes, you are going to need a video of that student actually playing. In PE, your student work sample must include a video evidence of all 3 of your focus students. In task 3 for early childhood, you're going to need video evidence of 2 focused children learning. Your feedback can also be video evidence, particularly if your child cannot read yet. If you are in a preschool or a kindergarten classroom, written feedback is probably not going to be considered developmentally appropriate. So you need to either have audio or video of you giving that feedback to the student. You can also, if you have video evidence of the student doing something and you are giving them feedback in real time while they're doing that task. For instance, if you are having the student play something and you are attempting to help them with their sound quality or their intonation, and you're giving them feedback and letting them try again, that can be both of your video work sample and your feedback. We're going to talk more about this in task 3, but I just want to give you kind of a in your head so you're knowing what video evidence you might need for task 3. Task 3, you also have the opportunity to provide up to 5 additional minutes for academic language evidence. It's best to film everything associated with the learning segment, but it's always a good idea to kind of know what video evidence you might need ahead of time. So for step 4, you're going to identify the best way to record your lessons. Most people use their phone. Now with your phone, the automatic video settings are going to be for high definition, and if you record on your phone in high definition, your video file is going to be so large that you're going to have to compress it a lot. So if you go into your phone settings and you turn it down to having a lower quality, then you will not have to compress your video as much once you get to the point that you're actually trimming it. So I strongly recommend that you go into your phone settings, or some people use an iPad, that's fine too, or a tablet to record, and you go to recording in a lower resolution. I do have a few cameras that you can check out. If you need them, you can contact me by emailing me if you would like to check a video camera out. If you have a large classroom or you're in a gymnasium, I strongly recommend that you either use a lapel mic, or some people have had really good experience and good luck using a Bluetooth that transmits to their phone. Just having something that transmits the audio directly to your phone instead of it having to pick it up from the back of the room or the back of the gymnasium is going to provide you with better quality. Many schools have a camera that their students have used successfully, particularly if they're in a physical education program. Test out your equipment prior to teaching your lessons. So step 5 is going to be actually recording your video clips. And remember, I said record every part of your learning segment. You never know when you're going to have just this wonderful, beautiful connection with your students. That could be really great documentation for edTPA. So your videos must show at least 4 students. So keep that in mind when you're organizing where that video camera is going to be in your classroom, that you need to have at least 4 students in the frame. They don't all 4 have to be in the frame at the same time, but you need to have at least 4 somewhere on that video. Videos should be good quality audio for at least the majority of the video. It is perfectly fine if there's like maybe a 10 or 20-second clip that you cannot hear that student because they're just soft-spoken and they're not looking into the camera. You can provide a transcript or you can add subtitles for that one area. But for the majority of the time, you should be able to hear everything that is said. Your videos for task 2 are not required to show for 3 focused students. You actually don't even need to have those 3 focused students selected until you're working on task 3. However, if you know that you're going to provide video evidence for task 3, for instance, your early childhood, your physical education, or even if you're a music person and you know that you're going to be providing that video evidence, you might want to select a few potential focus students and intentionally include them in the video and intentionally put them somewhere that they are in the video that you might be able to then use that for task 3 evidence. As you are recording your videos, be sure to think about what follow-up questions. When I ask a question, the student responds, what else can I ask them to further their response? Sometimes these are things that you can't plan. So be sure to be thinking that you need to follow up on those responses as you're recording. Make sure you're asking higher order thinking questions. Select a video that shows you calling students by their name and has you following up on their questions, building on their responses. Select videos that, while your video, you want to make sure that you can select videos that show students engaging in the task. So that means that while you're recording, you need to have those students engaging in the task. Partner work, small group work is great for video evidence. You're going to be wanting to select video clips that have the students practicing the skills that they're teaching. So that means that you're wanting to record things where the students are practicing their skills. Remember, the video is more important than your commentary. You can't just say, I did it. You have to show it. You have to be able to back up that commentary with video evidence in task 2. PE, you need to make special attention to your video requirements. There is going to be another video that's specifically for physical education, but you need to remember that the number of students that you show in your video has to match the number in your context for learning. Now, if it's 1 or 2 off, that's fine. But if in your context for learning, you said that you have 60 students and then your mentor teacher takes half of them and you are only working with half of them, you need to go back and put 30 down or 20 down or whatever it is that's going to be in your group that you're teaching. That's completely fine if you're not teaching the whole class that comes into the gym at one time and you're splitting it with your mentor teacher. But your context for learning should only say that your class size is that group that you are actually teaching for your learning segment. Nobody likes seeing themselves on video. However, I strongly urge you to watch the video each night that you record. This way you're making sure that you have a good quality video and that you are loud enough and you can hear everybody. There is nothing worse than realizing after you have recorded these 3 fabulous lessons that your video camera was on mute the entire time. If you watch your video night 1, then you still have 2 more days to correct those errors. A few years ago, we had a student that she said, I don't know what happened, but all of my videos are blurry. Well, she'd gotten a new iPhone for Christmas and she'd forgotten to take off the little protective film. And so everything kind of looked like it was through smoke and mirrors. She could see it just fine on her phone when she watched it small, but when she blew it up onto a computer, it was very fuzzy. And so I highly recommend that you go ahead and upload your videos every night onto your computer. That being said, one other thing that you need to make sure that you're doing while you're videotaping is your video must have you and the front of your face sometime in at least one of the video. You don't have to be front and center the whole time. You can definitely be walking around, but at some point in the video, at least for a few seconds, your face must be shown so that there is the ability to use facial recognition software and for edTPA to say, yes, in fact, that is you, if it ever came into question that you were using somebody else's video. All right, so you taught your lessons. Now it's time to find your perfect video clip or clips. And then you're going to trim them. So first and foremost, you need to review your handbook for individual program requirements. Remember, each program is different. So I can't sit here and tell you exactly what your video clip needs to be, because then I would be confusing other students that are in different programs. So that's up to you to look at your handbook and figure out exactly what your program is asking you to do. Next, there is a guide on the UA edTPA website that I'm going to show you in the next slide that helps select your video clips. One suggestion I have is to select your first clip and write your commentary using that first clip. Whatever clip you think is the absolute best, write your commentary on that clip. Then you can go back and kind of see, where do I have some holes? What do I need a few more examples of? And you can select that second clip to kind of complement that first clip. If you select your 2 clips at the exact same time, there's a chance that you're going to be selecting things that are very, very similar. So make sure that your clips are complementing each other and that together you have a complete picture of what you did for edTPA and that great teaching. If you are using multiple clips, they can come from the same learning segment or they can be from 2 different learning segments. It doesn't matter. Each clip needs to be a minimum of 3 minutes in length. I highly recommend that you have the maximum of your clips together being whatever that maximum is for your program. If that's 20 minutes or if that's 15 minutes, please remember to look in your handbook. But by giving the score as much information as possible, that's your best bet. You may not edit the videos to get the total minutes, and we'll talk a little bit about editing in a second here, but basically you can't select like this 2 minutes from the beginning of the lesson and this 2 minutes from the end of the lesson. If you select the beginning of the lesson and the end of the lesson, those are going to be 2 separate clips. And it's okay to do that. Remember, it's okay to have 2 clips from the same lesson, but you cannot combine them. Make sure that you label your video very clearly so that when you go back, you're able to select the video that you want. So if you go onto the UA website, right here under Task 2 Resources, it's going to say, let me see if I can read that. Task 2, select the best video clip. And when you upload it, it's going to look, or download it, sorry. When you download it, it's going to look something like this. This is obviously the physical education one, but there is one for each individual program. And it's going to have lesson 1, 2, 3, and then there's an optional 4 and 5 if you happen to have 4 and 5 lessons. And it's got some directions on exactly how to use this. But these are the things that in your commentary you're going to be talking about. And so as you're watching your lessons, you're going to be documenting which clips have these things in them. And then you're going to want to select the 2 clips that show the majority of these things. When you're selecting your clips, there's a few things that you want to avoid. Do not select a clip with you giving content errors. I know that that seems obvious, but I just want to mention it because that is something that can get you scored at an automatic 1. Make sure that you're showing respect to your students. Avoid any clips that are showing disrespect to the students or where students are showing disrespect to each other. If a student does show disrespect to another student and you immediately stop that action and you redirect the student, or if it's appropriate, you explain to the student very quickly why that's not appropriate, and then move on in a way that doesn't belittle or make fun of that student, then that's perfectly fine. We know that the students are not perfectly behaved. You can have a few little incidents in your video where students are making silly faces at the camera or something like that. They do not need to be perfectly behaved. But you don't want to have a huge amount of disrespect. Avoid clips where the focus is on classroom management. Remember, the people watching these videos are real teachers or faculty members. They know that, that classrooms are not perfectly well behaved. If you are spending the majority of the time saying, please remember to raise your hand, you're not teaching. There is no rubric in edTPA that is focusing solely on behavior management. That means they're only focusing on what you're teaching. That means that they're not worried about the student that is kind of wiggling in their chair. That happens. They're focusing on, can you create an environment where the students are learning? Now, if the behavior is so egregious that there's obviously no learning taking place, yes, you're going to have points deducted. But if a student forgets to raise their hand, or a student gets out of their seat without permission, or even if a student falls out of their seat, or starts dancing in the middle of the class, as long as you address it and move on and redirect, you are completely fine. If students are kind of showing off a little bit for the camera, but you redirect them and you say, hey, we need to focus on what's going on, great, that's fine. As long as you are clearly in charge and you're helping move those students in the right direction for learning, then your videos are going to be just fine. Don't choose a video clip that does not reflect on your specific subject that you are focusing on. So if you are in elementary and you are focusing on your English language arts and you're in a science classroom, make sure that the clips that you focus on are very obvious that you, even though you're teaching science content, you are still teaching those English language arts specific standards. If you need some help with that, please reach out to myself or Ms. Fly, and we would be happy to make sure that you are on the right page with that. Also, don't show clips that are only you talking. This is supposed to be about the students learning. It's impossible to know if the students are learning if it's just you talking. I am sitting here in my office talking to you right now. I don't really know if you're learning. I'm hoping you are. You're an adult, so you are in charge of your own learning. But this would not be a good edTPA example. After you select your video, now it's time to trim it. You can only trim, not editing. If you have questions about how do I trim my video, then there is going to be another video for you, but I know a lot of you already know how to do that, so I'm not going to put it in this video and take up your time. I suggest that you have someone else listen to your video to make sure that they can hear as well as you, because you know what you said, but somebody else also, so it's going to be easier for you to hear it because you already know what you said, but you want to make sure that somebody else can also hear it. After you trim your video, that's when you're going to put the timestamps in so that when you're writing your commentary, it directly relates to the video evidence. You might need to compress your video. Each video, the file, can be no more than 500 megabytes. They say that it's best to do 200 to 300 is like your targeted range. There's several ways for you to compress. There's these 3 videos on YouTube are going to be linked to Blackboard, and those are going to give you ways to compress your video depending on if you're a Mac or a PC user. Trimming is not the same as compressing. After you trim your video and you decide I want this 10 minutes of video, if you are still over that 500 megabytes, you need to actually compress the file, meaning making the file quality a little less. Do not just trim your video, because then you're trimming out good stuff that you want to show the score. If you have any questions, please reach out to me and I will help you trim your video. I will help you compress your video. I can help you with all that technology things. These are things that you can do even in editing software that edTPA does not consider editing. You can trim off the beginning or the middle of the video. What you can't do is you can't select, I want this 2 minutes from here or this 2 minutes from here and put those together. You can add subtitles. If you can't hear a student, you can add subtitles, or if you're not that technology savvy, you can add a transcript at the end of the commentary. You can blur faces. You can add an emoji over top of a student's face if you didn't get their permission slip. You can use editing software to increase the volume of certain areas in your video or lessen the volume if it's a little bit overwhelming compared to the rest of the video. And you can use editing software to compress the video size of, or the file size of the video. None of those are considered editing. What you can't do in task 2, these are the things that are considered editing. You cannot use multiple cameras in your recording and then merge them to create a single video. You can't splice together multiple video clips to create a single clip. You cannot use voiceover. You can't use a picture within a picture. and you can't add a still frame shot. Now, in task 3, you can do all of those. Task 3, you edit until your heart's content, as long as it is your original video. But task 2, it's got to be the original video. And what I like to think of is, if you had a clock in the background of your video for task 2, is that clock going to be continuous the whole time? It doesn't matter if that clock starts at 1 or 1:05, but once it starts, it can't jump, and it needs to be continuous. Step 7, keep all of your videos for possible artifact use for task 3, or in the event that you need to retake, you have it. Don't delete anything, any of your videos, until after you receive a passing score. For step 8, now you're going to complete your commentary section. There is a template you've located on the UA edTPA website. That's what you're going to use for your commentary. Remember, when answering the prompts, you want that every example that you give in that commentary needs to directly relate to a timestamp from the video. There is going to be a how to answer the commentary video for more information, so be sure to watch that video as you're writing your commentary. This is an example of somebody that scored very, very well. In fact, she scored a 5 in this prompt. This is only part of the prompt. It goes on, but what I want to do is show you how she timestamped. So as you can see right here, this is a timestamp. So here's the example, and then this is where you can find it in video 1. Here's another timestamp. Here's another timestamp. Here's another timestamp. And this was just the first part of her prompt. It goes on for a second paragraph that talks about how she challenged students and gives 4 more timestamps. Some helpful hints is, in your commentary, only talk about what you can see in the video. You can write about things that happened outside of the video for context, but they will not be scored. The only things that will be scored is if they can be seen in the video, and you can provide a timestamp where the scorer can go in the video and find those. I suggest a minimum of 3 timestamps per prompt. And if that prompt has more than 1 focus, then I suggest 3 timestamps for each one of those focuses. Things to kind of keep in consideration: don't include the name of the school, state, or district in your video or in your commentary. Now, if you're in the gym and in the middle of the gym floor it says Northridge High School, that's fine. Don't worry about it. This is not something that is going to get you a condition code. This is only something that helps to make sure that the scores are not partial to giving you a better or worse score. If you happen to be wearing a UA shirt in your video, or one of your students is, don't worry about it. Do not be too concerned about that, but just do your best not to mention the school name, state, or district, and using first names in your video only. Step 9, determine if you have any additional information is needed to understand what your students are doing in the video clips. So at the end of your commentary, you can provide up to 2 additional pages of supporting documents. This would not count towards your page count for your commentary. So if your commentary says a maximum of 6 pages is allowed for task 2, you can have an additional 2 pages of supporting documentation. This might be things like transcripts, where maybe at 2 minutes and 10 seconds to 2 minutes and 15 seconds, a student answered a question and you couldn't really understand what they were saying, so you can provide a transcript of just that time. You don't have to provide a transcript of the entire video, just the parts that you can't hear. And remember, you only need to provide a transcript if you don't want to put subtitles into your video. You may want to provide a graphic, a text, or an image that's difficult to see in the video. Maybe you have something projected on the board, and because of the angle of your camera or the sun coming through the window, it's a little bit hard to see in your video. So you can provide an actual picture at the end of your commentary if you think that that's important for the scorer to know what was on the blackboard or what was on the video screen. You might want to provide the worksheet that the students are working on if it's not visible in the video. Or if you reference a chart that's outside of the frame of the video, this would be a good time to go ahead and put a picture of that chart that you're referencing. Your evidence chart at the back of your handbook is also going to be able to give you some more content-specific ideas that you might want to include at the end of your commentary.